What's up, guys? Fork here, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Happy and Safe podcast. Joining me, as always, is Samuel, aka Murpher.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, actually, I try to opt in to do this podcast completely by myself every week, but I keep getting lots of comments. I don't know if you've ever seen my videos. Lots of comments on them all the time about
Yeah, a
having
lot of
you
them.
on. So
Yeah, I see it always.
yeah, you can easily tell. You can easily see. So
Yeah, it's normally just me.
so it is just the two of us again this week, and like we did last week, we'll be starting with what we've been doing in the last week, in terms of gaming or just in general. So Samuel, if you'd like to take it away.
Well, this week I played a good amount of CS. I started playing CS again this week, and then also have continued to play RuneScape, making the big gains, and just doing what needs to be done.
What
Once
needs
again,
to be done?
playing RuneScape right now as we record this podcast.
Because at this point, between last week and this week, what is that? 50? It's 50% of the podcast where you're playing RuneScape.
That's what it's all about. It's all about RuneScape.
So we're about, well, let's see, you'd say we're about like a week and a half into your experience with RS3.
Yeah, about a week and a half.
How would you still feel the same about it? You still having a good old one?
Yeah, I still think it's a good old fun game. Enjoying it. I've now caught up to Colin, and I'm about the same level. I'm actually a higher level, but yeah, I've caught up to him, and it's good time. Tried some bossing yesterday, but we don't have stats for good bosses, so we tried some low tier bosses, and it was trash.
What was ridiculous to me was how easy the one boss, just
Yeah,
how
the giant
ridiculously
mole.
easy the giant mole was, and then how much the paradigm shifted when we tried to do Cow Fight Queen. To be
Cowboy
fair,
Queen is just a problem because we don't have the stats.
to be fair, that's a fight where you have to be fighting it a certain way for half of it, and then have to be fighting it another way for the other half. And if you don't have the right stats in one of those ways of fighting, you don't even touch it.
Yeah, it was stupid. They pray protect from whatever the boss does, and it was super dumb and not fun.
So Samuel has been no-lifing the shit out of RuneScape. Meanwhile, I've been playing a range of games, which is why he caught up to me. Okay, I'm good at video games, I swear. Myself, is that all you had to? Did you do anything in real life this week, Samuel?
I got a haircut and took care of a 27-year-old man, but that's about it.
So for myself this week, in terms of gaming, like I said, it has been a range of video games. Typically the same three as the usual weeks. Ever since I started playing PlayerUnknown's Battleground, that has been a bit of a staple in my gaming in the last couple of weeks. Between PlayerUnknown's, playing WoW, and playing a little bit of RuneScape with you, that's typically where I'm at. Nothing particularly exciting in terms of gaming this week. What was exciting in the last week for me, I'm sure most of the people who watch this, because that video got more views than our podcast typically get already. So you've probably seen that. I made a video that came out on Tuesday about my experience at the Something Wonderful Festival this past weekend. A nice little EDM festival. And some nice electronic dance music. And that was a really good time. I had a lot of fun there, but I typically do. Honestly, and I say this in the video, but I just reiterate this point until I'm dead. If you are at all interested in EDM music, even if you're just someone who just doesn't hate it, like, unless you hate it, I'm talking to you. I'd say go to an EDM festival or go to an EDM show. There's a lot of shows at like local clubs in different towns that are actually pretty cheap. I think typically to go to one at the club near us, it's like 15 or 20 bucks. I'd say just go to one just to experience it, because it's so fun. It's such a great time, and hopefully that came across in my video at least a little bit. I really wanted to try to like translate that experience, but I don't know if I did it, and I hope I did. So if you haven't seen that video from Tuesday, definitely go check it out. It's one of my favorite videos that I think I've ever done, and I was really happy with the way that it came out. So definitely check that out. But it's time now to move on to the topics of this week. Last week we were very, we'll call it futuristic. We were talking about flying cars, 360-degree cameras. We're kind of still in that same vein this week. Not quite as futuristic. It's grounded a little bit more in reality. Well, one of the topics is. The other one still seems pretty damn futuristic. But what we're going to start off with this week is not so much flying cars, but self-driving cars. This is something that I feel like is way more grounded in reality. It's something that is much closer to existing in the real world. And there's actually tests going on right now in Arizona. The Waymo company, which I believe is a spinoff from Google, is the same kind of technology that Google has, because I believe they were part of Google until last year. In Arizona, are now ordering 500 minivans, which will be rigged up with the sensors they use for the self-driving, and giving out free rides for a couple months to people in Phoenix. Samuel, based on what I've initially told you, what do you how do you feel?
It's really interesting. It's exciting to hear about, and I hope the tests go well, and no one dies or gets injured. So there's really nothing more to say.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. No one has died in this. I don't know if anyone's died in general. There was, because I do have written down here, there was a little bit of trouble with Uber because they had one of their cars. I don't know if it was their car or if the car caused the accident. There was an accident and the car ended up flipped over when they were when Uber was trying some of their self-driving technology. But Waymo actually sued Uber recently because Uber was stealing some of their technology, because Uber came out and admitted that their technology was pretty flawed after this whole accident thing happened. So there's a little bit more hope because Waymo has the much better technology and has been developing for, I think, a little bit longer. So in these tests in Arizona, essentially there's going to be a man behind the wheel, quote unquote, in case of emergencies. The goal is to have the car pretty much be driving itself, but there will be an operator who does exist, who will kind of just be sitting there, not actually driving, but if stuff starts really hitting the fan, they're supposed to cut in. So that's kind of their safety net in case anything starts to happen.
That's good. That's very good.
But yeah, they've made an order for 500 minivans to come, and they're essentially, it's kind of just like a beta test. The rides are absolutely free, so if you're in the Phoenix area, you can go and sign up, I believe, on Waymo's website, and you could possibly get free rides to places for a couple months. The only thing is I believe they're looking for participants that are willing to use the self-driving service as their primary mode of transportation. So if you sign up to do this, I think they're looking for you to be doing this as a way to get around for the next couple months, because that's how extensively they're trying to test, because their next step is to try to roll it out nationwide. So essentially these people are just going to be driven around for the next couple months by a robot.
Yeah, it's real cool. And like I said, I hope it goes well, and it'd be great to take that step into the future, pretty much.
Well, I just think
start having self-driving cars around.
Yeah, I just think they're so. Because personally, I mean, I know some people like it. I really don't like driving that much. I'm not a fan. If I could get into a vehicle, like let's say if I came back to Houston, I'd love to get into a vehicle, type in an address, and then just kind of sit there and do whatever the heck, like play on my phone or what have you. Because as a driver, you just got to sit there and watch the road. There's a ton of danger with people falling asleep, general human error. But if I could just get into a car that's going to drive itself and just play video games or something for like 2.5 hours while I drove all the way to another city, that would be great.
Yeah, I like driving, but I don't like driving right now because I don't like driving my car. So, I mean, if I could do that as well, I'd definitely take that over driving, my shitty little Pontiac.
And maybe it'll take some people, maybe it'll be a while before people get that comfortable. But even if I was like, all right, middle of the night, let me go to sleep and wake up there, that would be really cool. I know that's like, I have a feeling it's not going to be something that people, even if self-driving cars came out today, I think that's something that people would not be comfortable with for a pretty long time.
Not at all.
Because you're really putting all the faith, like what, like if you've got like 4 or 5 people or multiple people in the car, do you have someone stay up to keep watch essentially?
I'd definitely have someone I'd probably be keeping watch.
And then you're just like, you're rotating your sleep cycles to make sure the car's not crashing into anything.
'Cause they have those Mercedes that do that self-driving stuff, but they have like every 30 seconds, whatever, you have to touch the steering wheel or something. But like that's something I'd definitely be interested in, because I could just be looking at my phone or whatever for 20 seconds or whatever, like not have to look at the road all the time. But I definitely wouldn't be comfortable just not paying attention to what's going on, or like just going to sleep when I know there's not someone driving the car, like controlling the car.
I think that mindset might change if we get to the point where everybody's cars are self-driving.
Well, if everything's self-driving and there's no big wrecks going on and shit's not malfunctioning, which eventually I'm sure it'll be like that in the world. But I mean, yeah, I'd be comfortable at that point. But right now, I'd just be like, yeah, it's cool, I'd do it, but I'd keep watch.
Yeah, because there's nothing to stop someone else from crashing into you. But I guess at that point, there's not much you could really do anyway. I don't know. It's definitely something that's going to be interesting to see how the technology plays out and where it goes in the future.
Then if that happens, it's not even your car, and you can't get that insurance, dude. It's not. It's just a fail. It's a lose-lose for everyone.
But hopefully this kind of picks up, because I'm, like I said, someone who would love to be doing anything but driving when I'm on any kind of road trip. In the same vein, though, of this futuristic conversation that we've got going on, there is something else that is being tested by I believe students / researchers from MIT. It is a 3D printing construction robot, essentially. It is a giant robot that is on it. It almost looks like a truck, kind of. It's on these treads. So imagine if you kind of mixed a truck and like a tractor. It's on treads, and it has this one. It's almost like a hook, but it's like a hook / sprayer / it's like this one fingered instrument to kind of do everything it needs to. What I think is cool about this is the point of this robot is to literally make buildings.
Oh shit.
It has like a hydraulic arm that can reach up a decent amount. I don't think they have any exact measurements on the page that I'm looking at, but it created this kind of dome thing around itself in a test. It's still in the testing phase. So the first test, it created this dome thing around itself, and it made it in just over 13 hours.
Oh wow.
What I think is really, let's see, because like I said, I don't think they have
one?
Well, it's a dome that went completely around the entire robot.
And this robot's like the size of a truck.
Yes. Imagine, I'd say, because it's also pulling some supplies and stuff on the trailer behind it, I would say we're looking at the size, imagine like a little bit smaller, but like an 18-wheeler.
Oh shit.
So if they made mini 18-wheelers, that's kind of how big this thing is. So it made this entire dome around itself in just about 13 hours. What really blows the rest of the facts out of the water is the criteria that the researchers made for the robot for it to function. So one of the biggest things that they had was they wanted this robot to be able to scavenge. So it made this dome around itself with stuff that it found on the construction site and in the area around it.
Wow.
So it went out, it dug up dirt, It dug up all these other things, found these supplies on the construction site, and that's what it made the dome out of. It wasn't made out of concrete. It wasn't like it made it out of this like kind of dirt mixture, I guess. It was like a dirt mixed with like a kind of like a foam spray to make this dome around it.
Really cool.
What really changes the game with that, I think, is one of the big goals for a robot like this is to put it on other planets.
What?
They literally, one of the goals for this robot for its existence is to put this robot on other planets to create colonized structures for us to then send people to after they're done.
Shit.
Specifically here it says the robot had to be able to use materials found on the construction site and possibly scavenged from the environment like ice or dirt. This would make it useful in remote areas and even on other planets like Mars.
That's crazy as fuck.
Yes, that's ridiculous. You want to talk about the future? We've really thrown ourselves full speed into the future.
That's universal colonization.
It says
that's what we're doing.
They continue on. They say otherwise people would have to move it, which would be dangerous. But it probably shouldn't fly. Flying robots are too likely to be buffeted by wind or rain. If they stop working suddenly, they wouldn't just stall, they would plummet to the ground. So they definitely want something. That's why it's on the treads, I believe, because they want something that's going to be able to trudge through different terrains.
Everything.
Yeah. So let's see. It says it can be fitted with a range of different tools, including a foam insulation gun, a welding attachment, a thermoplastic extruder that squirts out melted plastic, essentially a glorified squirt gun, their words, and even a bucket. So this thing's got all this really dope technology on it, and it's just carrying a bucket on the back of it to scoop up like sand and shit.
Oh, shit.
Let's see. It says the original robot chassis they were using came with a diesel engine, but to make the robot more self-sufficient, the team equipped it with solar panels and battery packs to power an electrical drive system. Weighing it at more than 8,100 pounds, this robot weighs. And it costs
8,100.
And it costs about $250,000 to make.
Oh, shit. Only at MIT.
Yeah. So they're saying that in typical construction, it would be using the foam to kind of hold concrete together. But in this test, the lot that they were using, the owners didn't want them to make this weird cement dome that wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
So, but I think that works better because it only proves its ability to kind of scavenge the environment around it and use the things that are at its disposal, as opposed to just kind of making preconceived construction.
Yeah, instead of just like putting in a blueprint in it, it can just make something itself. That's just like shows you how crazy the advancement of like AI is.
Exactly. The next step is to rig it up with proximity sensors. Rig it up with proximity sensors to kind of further its ability to understand the space around it. Because now it's capable of navigating the space, but it's a little clumsy, I guess is the word we'll use. So what they want it to do is be able to understand the physical space around it. They want it to be able to understand the weather that it's in. And they want it to be able to detect quickly moving objects, such as humans who are coming in and out of the construction site, or animals, or things like that. So essentially, this robot would know exactly where it was, is the end goal.
Oh, yeah.
And to understand this, like I said, the space around it. So more big future talk coming out of this podcast here.
Times.
It's
big old futuristic technology.
It's weird because we've kind of reached this point where the only technological advancements that are possible are ones that sound fake.
Yeah, like going to Mars.
Yeah, like a lot of what I read today was all like flying this and automated that and robots and so
building space colonies.
Building space colonies. Unfortunately, though, because we are only running at about 20 or so minutes right now, and we've already plowed through both of the articles that I had for today. I did pick up a third article that will kind of set you back in your place if you thought the future was coming too quickly. Because Elon Musk, you know him, you love him, the man behind SpaceX, which is already doing nuts stuff. I think their first like commercial space flight is this year or something. This year or next year, something real crazy. This man has the unreasonable goal to create essentially these neural transplants that in the next 4 years would be capable of fixing things like paralysis.
What?
Which sounds nuts. It says Elon Musk wants to fix disability, replace language as we know it, and use brain implants to usher us into the telepathic world. And he wants it all to be done in the next 4 years. And all of this could theoretically work, say the experts, but probably not on the timeline that Musk has set. So this man wants us all to be, essentially not having to talk anymore in the next 4 years. But scientists are basically saying, slow your roll, sir. That's not going to happen. So most of... Go ahead.
It's already weird. Why would you want people not to talk? Just so there's no language barrier, I guess?
Well, here we go with this next paragraph. One of the ultimate goals is to communicate mind to mind with none of this pesky talking. This is verbatim from the article. Because talking leads to miscommunication. Right now, we have a thought and say it in a language we know. Someone else hears the language, then understands it. With the brain-machine interface, you could just send thoughts directly. And Musk himself says this actually is feasible because we know that when you think about words, even without moving your mouth, there's brain activity and patterns that change that we can tap into. So essentially, what they want to do is kind of map the brain so completely that you can send the messages directly from your brain to someone else who has this implant. Now, this is all... Well, first of all, let's take a step back. Samuel, yay or nay?
Paralysis.
Yeah, good old paralysis, boys.
Paralysis thing is real cool. I don't know about the thoughts thing and the not talking. I just think that's kind of weird. I don't think anybody would really want to just like stop talking.
Well, I don't think you don't have to stop talking. It's just like,
I'm not trying to just send my thoughts to someone.
So
thoughts are with you. Love, Sam.
Except they're literally your thoughts are with them. You're in their thoughts and they know. My question is, what kind of range are we talking? They don't really mention it in here. What kind of range are we talking to be able to send these thoughts?
In an internet relationship, just real happy about this. They're trying to do it.
A big point that they're making in the article is that non-invasive brain interfaces are impossible. People don't even want the government to know what they're Googling, what they're doing on their phone, even though it's real naive. They know what you're doing. They've seen your penis. All your dick pics, the government's seen them. What is the next step? Like, the worrisome thing about technology like this is, what is the government going to do with it?
They would be able to just like control us. I feel like if you get that shit put in your head.
Now we're really going into some conspiracy levels. I love it.
I feel like you'd just be fucked. The government can, because like they can see everything on your computer if they want. They can see everything on your phone if they want.
They're probably looking at me right now.
They probably already have, they have the all-seeing eye. That conspiracy, that thing exists in real life. So
it's just not quite as, conspiracies make it much cooler than them just looking through my webcam on my laptop.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's essentially all they're doing.
Why would you want to put a piece of technology in your brain that the government could just be like hearing all your thoughts? They'd be like, we're stopping terrorism, but like they're not.
That's the thing. That's what I was about to say. They've already got all these things in place to catch emails and calls and all these things to thwart possible terrorism. Think about how much shit, just the average person, I don't care who you are, I don't care how normal you think you are, we think about fucked up shit all the time. No matter who you are, some kind of fucked up or disturbing thought has passed through your mind.
Especially if you're mad.
Are we going to have control over what gets sent out? I mean, I imagine that if this became on a commercial level for whatever reason in the future, if it was on a commercial level, those bugs would be worked out, hopefully. But at what point, when someone's, pissing you off and you're like, God, I would stab you in the chest right now or some shit, like, that's exaggerated. But like, when you have those angry thoughts, like road rage, think about if you're like pissed off at the guy next to you, he cuts you off, you motherfucker, and you really, in your mind you're yelling at him, or even out loud you're yelling at him. What if you accidentally sent that to that person? Who's gonna start getting shot over some, like, people are stopped at a red light and people are already road raging, they're already getting out, they're already threatening people, trying to fight people in the streets when there's certain, particular.
I remember some story in driving school about a man shooting another man in the head with a crossbow.
Is that just a thing they tell in driving school? Because no,
it was a real story.
No, I know, but like, is that standard in driving school to tell people that story?
I'm sure it's part of the class when they were teaching us about road rage.
Well, I took an online course unrelated to yours, and I still was told that story.
Oh, I don't know.
If you were told that story in driving school, feel free to leave it in the comments down below.
You got road rage? Don't have a crossbow in your trunk. You're gonna kill someone. That's pretty much what I got out of it.
That's what I learned in boating school is if you have a crossbow in your trunk, you're gonna kill someone with it. But my point being that how much control would someone have over what thoughts are being sent out, and how much control is someone else gonna have for tapping into your shit, like phones? Look at the fappening, boys.
The fappening.
The cloud got hacked. This is the ultimate cloud for literally your thoughts.
And just think, like, as people start to come to understand, just like hackers and people who like social engineer and steal money and stuff like that have learned how to like work with this technology. Imagine once they learn to stumble over all their words and sound like an idiot. Once they learn to learn how to use that, and just bad people start getting control of that and start like tapping into your little nano chip in your brain. Like, what?
Yeah, because then they've got what? They've got your bank pin.
Technology. I wouldn't want that.
They've got your bank pin. They've possibly got all your card numbers. Some people will memorize. Like I have all the numbers on the card that I use right now. I have all those numbers memorized.
Yeah, I don't
That's in there. Your weird deep. Like I said, people are super concerned about privacy right now. Privacy's gone. If something like this comes to fruition, privacy is gone, and on a level that we never thought.
Really likes their privacy. I'd say no to that. Yeah. all day.
And on a level that we never even because you can stop yourself from Googling some of the dumb shit that's in your head. Because how people can track you now is if you've Googled it, if you've searched it up. Even if it just pops into your mind, someone could have access to it. So there's a lot of concerns. There's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of hoops to jump through for a project like this. And it is super ambitious and super not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody would want it either. So it's like, create your technology, but you'll be the only one using it. Have fun when somebody starts tapping into all your thoughts.
Well, they go on to say in the article, it says, despite all that money and brilliance, we're not particularly close to the future Musk is talking about, and here are some of the challenges. And then just italicize, all it says is, we don't know enough about the brain. Since your brain is composed of lots of individual cells called neurons, which have to communicate with each other, so they send signals through chemical or electrical impulses. There are billions of these inside the brain at any given time. When you think about anything, right now, just as we're doing this podcast talking about this, there are millions and billions of messages being sent through your brain at any given time, faster than any computer that even could possibly exist right now. They say that for you,
that new 50-core processor, dude, come on.
They say that for you to be able to do something about this, says the brain has roughly 100 billion neurons. So you would need a piece of tech that could not only record all of these, but be able to understand what the messages mean and send those out to another person. Then theirs has to be able to understand the message that you're sending, translate it into something that brain understands. You'd essentially have to imprint this tech, because not everyone's brain works the same. We all process things differently. which can even come down to a physical level. Like chemically, you could be processing a thought differently in your head than someone else. There's no universal standard for brain power and brain processing. So they say that you would need, well, essentially you would need brain surgery to get this in your head. We'd have to have implants that could actually last a long time inside of your head. Because if something goes wrong, it could fry your shit.
And you're dead.
You just also would need a brain surgeon to get it back out of you. But they also say that to even be able to do something like this, you would need a lot of volunteers to essentially spend at least 2 years of their lives. This is verbatim from the article. Even if you took a few unlucky volunteers who spent 2 years of their lives thinking different thoughts for you to decode with your machine learning algorithm, there's no guarantee that different people encode information in the same way. So you'd have to go through the entire process with every person that gets the implant. So as of right now, where technology is right now, if you wanted this implant, you would have to spend 2 years just thinking about stuff before they can make sure this implant is right for you and doing its job properly.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, we got billions of people on the earth. Are you expecting everyone to have this, like, implanted in them? A child's born, you're like, all right, let's get this chip in him.
And what's the plan for being able to forego language barriers? You'd have to make some kind of universal language or use one of the languages as a benchmark to help the computer even translate it into something that someone can understand.
I just don't think that's a smart idea, and I don't think anybody would get behind that except for him and his team.
Well, people have been working on this technology since the 80s. We just haven't gotten very far.
Good. I hope they don't, ever.
So, moral of the story is, if you thought the future was coming too quickly, it is, but not in a way that is over-exaggerated. Because this whole conversation, like, take yourself about 30 years back, 20, even 10, 15 years back. If someone were listening to a podcast where we were talking about this, they would think that we were just a couple of conspiracy nuts having a dumb conversation about something that doesn't exist or won't ever exist. And now we've got a man who he's not a young dude either. What has he been doing? I don't know that much about Elon Musk. What has he been doing all these years? Because he's come out recently. He's like, we're going to space and there's implants. He's like that crazy old man that pops out of the sewer, but he's like got a bunch of money and he's actually doing the things he's saying. So you can hear the thoughts of the man and he's in the other room. It's just, he sounds nuts, but it's all closer to real than it ever has been. Still pretty far, but closer to real than it ever has been.
You know, hopefully I'm dead before that happens.
Hopefully I'm dead. Yeah, next week when I fucking die, it's all gonna be fine. You planning to not make it to the next like 20 years, Samuel? Because they say that the quote unquote experts, I don't really have. They have a couple of specific scientists cited in here, but I'm not going to read off all of them. They say that essentially the timeline that would make sense for something like this is decades, not centuries, decades.
Then I'm dying before I'm 40.
If we continue at the rate that Elon Musk wants, we could have this technology in the next 20 or 30 years, hypothetically.
All right, by the time I'm 40 or 50, I'm moving into the woods and becoming primal as fuck.
They're like, also announcing the new implants. We've gone through human testing and they're ready for commercial consumption. As soon as that commercial comes on the air, Samuel is just, he's done.
I'm going to have a bag packed. I'm going to pack this bag today.
He's pulling out the old gun and he's taking himself out of this world.
When I hear that, I'm going to the forest and killing myself.
Going up on a cliff, packing a nice picnic, and then throwing himself off.
Making a campsite, hanging out for the night, and then in the morning, diving into a large bunch of spiky rocks and dying.
He's going out there for a week, carving out a bunch of spikes out of wood and rocks. He's putting them at the bottom of a cliff, going up to have a nice last meal, and falling right off.
Making one of those primitive technology YouTube channels. Getting lots of views on it like they all do, and then just killing myself. Everyone's like, why'd the video stop?
It's like, oh, that guy's dead. Why? Because of those brain implants. And then you sound like the crazy fucker because everyone else is probably down for it at that point because it's gonna be a while from now, and you're like, the government's gonna get into my brain, and then you're gonna fucking throw yourself off a cliff.
Why have I turned into a redneck
Well,
who
you're
just
like,
has no idea how to speak anymore?
well, you're 50 and you want to live in the woods. I don't know.
Does it mean I was raised in the woods?
I don't know, dude. Shut up. It's just a voice I did. So let's move the exact opposite direction. Let's pull a nice Activision and let's move in the exact opposite direction. Because
Activision.
the ending segment for this week is not so much a scenario that I've set up. It kind of is, but it's more centered around another. It's not an article. It's a I guess a fact. We'll call it a fact. Call of Duty. Everyone's favorite.
Everyone's
FPS.
favorite game.
One of the most played FPS games really was among the birth of the age of 12-year-olds on Xbox having sex with your mom.
Good
Everyone
stuff.
knows Call of Duty. You say Call of Duty to any human being, for the most part, or at least in developed countries, if you want to get real specific, they know what Call of Duty is. So it's not a big deal, but I guess it's a big deal to some people. If you're a console player, it's a bigger deal than if you're like a PC player, because we've been kind of over Call of Duty for a while. Call of Duty is essentially returning to its roots, quote unquote, and is coming out with their new game, simply titled World War II. So what people have been complaining about for a really long time is now being fixed, question mark? Because people have been bitching about them going into the future and all this crazy space and jetpacks and all this stuff. People have had a really bad response to it. So I guess in the vein of Battlefield, they've gone back to it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this, Samuel? What are your reactions?
I mean, even though I probably won't get to play it, I'm excited about it because I've really enjoyed all the World War II games and the quote unquote boots on the ground games.
I just can't understand how, because I've read a little bit about this game, and it starts. One of the first things we're gonna do, and following with every other World War II game, we're gonna be showing up on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. How many times can we tell this story? I know that these games aren't, at least Call of Duty specifically, I know that the games aren't specifically, even the company kind of has expressed that they don't care as much about their single player modes. But how many times can we tell the same World War II story?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna start on D-Day. We're gonna go in. I'm sure something along the lines of the Battle of the Bulge is gonna be addressed. There's gonna be some mission where you're in a tank. There's gonna be a mission where you're flying, and then you're gonna end it. Probably the Battle of Berlin, where it's because that's the historical timeline. That's what happened. You can't deviate. I understand being concerned about getting too futuristic and kind of going away from their roots as a shooter, but in terms of storytelling, history doesn't change. History is something that has happened, is something that has been told. Unless something new is discovered about history, the story is not changing. So how many times can we tell the same story over and over again and have it be interesting? Because Battlefield was kind of ahead of the curve when they made Battlefield 1 in terms of like the we hate the future, let's go back to the history aspect. When they made Battlefield 1, they kind of took that by the horns and they did it, and it was really good. It's a good game, but we can't, like, for instance, if for the next like 10 years we made World War 1 or 2 games, that would get so boring. I mean, how often can the Activision, the Call of Duty franchise hasn't made a World War II game since World at War, and that was how many years ago now? I mean, I just don't know. What do you think they could even do? How do you think they could even change it up at all?
I mean, it's the same story that we all know. Like, we're not trying to hear or play through the story of like another country, since this is pretty much just a real big game in like the UK and America, mostly America. And it's an American company, isn't it? So they're telling the American story, but we weren't extremely involved in World War II. We kind of came in, it was coming to a close anyway. So it's like we're just going to hear the same old story that thousands of games that have been created have told, including big blockbuster games like Call of Duties and Battlefields that are so popular and have millions upon millions of players. So it's like there's nothing really new they can tell with the story. But I think what the players, like the people who still play Call of Duty, are worried about is just they were sick of being able to fly in like exosuits. And so yeah, like you said, they don't really care about the story. I don't think anybody really plays Call of Duty for the story. So it's like as long as is it Sledgehammer
Hmm.
makes the multiplayer experience right, and like because World at War's multiplayer was a lot of fun in my opinion. The sniping in it was kind of hard, which is like what I do and what a lot of the people in the COD community do. Nobody really plays it competitively anymore except for like pro players and people that are trying to like competitively go pro in Call of Duty. But I mean, all Call of Duty games that come out now, they just need to make sure their multiplayer experience and the online experience is good. And I mean, they're bringing back Nazi zombies as well, so that's
2008.
just
World at War came out in 2008, almost 10 years ago. They haven't made a World War II game since. My concern is, I mean, are we getting a World at War remake essentially? The problem that I have and the concern that I have for it is, like you said, this one's made by Sledgehammer Games. Their track record includes Modern Warfare 3, which in my mind is one of the worst Call of Duty games that's ever come out, but I stopped playing before the futuristic ones came out. Those could have been worse. But as far as the non-futuristic ones, I think Modern Warfare 3 is one of the worst Call of Duties in the whole franchise.
yeah. I remember I got that, didn't enjoy it, and gave it to my brother immediately because I didn't like it.
They also made
Really give it a
advanced
chance though.
they also made Advanced Warfare, another Call of Duty game that has been got shit on a lot.
Yeah, that game
So
was trash.
yeah, we've gone back to the right era that people want us to be at, but did we do it with the right company?
Probably not. But now that there's
Probably
three
not.
companies working on Call of Duties, there's always what is it? Activision, Infinity Ward, and Sledgehammer now, and
It's
they've
well,
been doing it for a
Activision's
few
the
years.
oh god, I'd have to like look. I don't remember. Activision is the overarching company, I believe. It's Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, and there's another one. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there are three companies, but I don't think they made the right choice with Sledgehammer. If they wanted to bring back Infinity Ward to make this, I honestly, I'd probably be more excited. If Infinity Ward was working on this game, I'd probably be more excited.
Yeah, me too.
So it's
I just
just
I don't think it's going to be a good game necessarily.
the only thing that I can draw from this is the fact that, like you said, they're bringing back Nazi zombies. I'm pretty excited about that because I love Nazi zombies. But like you said, I don't. I probably won't buy the game unless it goes on
Yeah,
sale.
exactly.
I probably won't buy the game. But yeah, I think
No,
the only silver lining in this story about Call of Duty is that they are bringing back Nazi zombies, which could also be bad because they could easily fuck it up. Because like I
if they
said,
fuck up Nazi zombies, then they don't deserve to make games.
oh shit. Okay, rewind. I remember the three companies: Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, and Treyarch. Those are the ones. Treyarch being the ones that made World at War and made the Black Ops. Excuse what I said before. If Treyarch was coming back to make this World War II, because they made World at War, they were the ones that made Nazi zombies, or at least were the devs in the current cycle when those games came out. If they were coming back to do it, I'd say okay, but it's not. It's Sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer,
So
dude. Woo!
there's plenty of concern. So I think, I mean, we've really plowed through this podcast. 3 topics and an ending segment. Wow. So I think that
excited.
I think we're gonna call it, kind of bring it to a close now. We're not quite at an hour, so this is gonna be a little bit of a shorter one this week. Samuel, do you have any closing sentiments?
You know, I just made 300K off of one trip of Banshees. So That's my closing statement.
Fantastic. So, once again, and as always, thank you guys for listening to the Happy and Safe podcast. This has been episode 4.
Just want to make sure you guys all just be happy and safe.
So, in regards to the schedule next week on the channel, I'm not positive. Currently, the plan, I believe, is to make another creepypasta reading for Tuesday. That's the current plan. I haven't done one since I got my new mic, and I'd like to, because I'd like to see what kind of voice work I can do with this mic as opposed to my headset one. See if it can be any better or any cooler. But that's all for right now. That's all for today. That's all for podcast episode 4. As usual, thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed yourself, definitely put your thumb up my. Definitely hit the thumbs up. Give it a good old like, and I will see you guys next Tuesday.